Good morning. This is Dishha Bagchi for ThePrint, and we are back with Lieutenant General H.S. Panag to discuss his column from this week. Hamas can defeat Israel in tunnel warfare. Palestinian State once again closer to reality. Welcome back, General. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Disha. Always a pleasure.
So in this week's column, we return our attention to the conflict situation in Israel and Gaza, as Israel began its ground offensive last week. So to begin with, what has been the impact of Israel's ground offensive in Gaza so far?
As you're aware, that right since 7th of October, Israel has been carrying out intensive air campaign against the Gaza Strip. By default or by design, making little or no distinction between the Hamas targets and civilian targets. In any case, they are intermingled with each other. The campaign has been very intense, and up to now, 9,000, Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, and a small number, relatively small number in West Bank, and close to 32,000 have been wounded. And of course, this is being used for information warfare as well, as Israel has been using, the visuals of the 7th October attack inside Israel. About a week back, that is, around 24th, 25th, Israel had begun some probing attacks into the Gaza Strip. On 30th of October, that is Monday, early morning or at night, there are signs available, and almost all the entire media has reported it, that there is the much awaited offensive, the full-scale offensive of Gaza has begun. What it appears is that Israel is concentrating on the Gaza city, which is in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, because that is the hub center of Hamas, and probably the most densely populated area also. That's why beginning around 14th, 15th October, they had started giving warnings to the people of the North Gaza, that's where the Gaza city is located, to move to the south. That means evacuate north because of the impending operations. So what it appears from the reports in the media is that it's a two-pronged attack on multiple axes on both sides. One is from the north, and then is from the south or southeast relatively. So the intent is to isolate and cut off Gaza city before the final operations begin there. There is this Wadi Gaza, which runs through almost a little more than half of this thing towards the north of the Gaza Strip. So the operations are generally to the north of it, or north of Wadi Gaza. Wadi is a kind of a little valley with a stream, and so far the battle has been on the outskirts. If you see the satellite imagery of Gaza city, there are less densely populated areas on the outskirts, about varying from 7-8 miles to 10 miles, and then the hub of the built-up area starts. So far, the battle has been on the outskirts, and Israeli Defense Forces were closing in to tighten their stranglehold. So whatever encounters have taken place is on the outskirts, where there were tunnels, but they were only trans-border tunnels, more for smuggling. And so naturally the Hamas was fighting a kind of fighting withdrawal, what we call in military parlance. So both sides have not suffered very heavy casualties. As per Israel's own acknowledgement, 23 soldiers have died. I'll come to this aspect a little later as to the issue of casualties. The casualty figures of Hamas are not known. This thing, but so this is where we stand today. And Israeli Defense Forces spokesman also said that they are now about to begin the battle of the main urban areas where the tunnels and all are located, and they are already encountering a lot of mines and a lot of booby traps. But the information is sketchy, and we do not know anything beyond this. But I'll just like to mention that on the eve of this operation, what did Netanyahu say? And now Netanyahu said that the battle is going to be long and hard. It will be a long and hard campaign. This is the second stage of war. We have a clear goal to destroy Hamas governing and military capability. So this is what has been said by Netanyahu, and it was said, I think, on 28th or 29th of October. Now, Hamas is equally determined. It says that Netanyahu and his defeated army will not be able to achieve any military victory. That means it is determined to stalemate. So what we have on the cards is a very hard and tough campaign in which both sides are equally determined, and it will be a very intense battle. And so let's see how it unfolds in the coming days. Situation will only become clear after about a week.
Right. So when it comes to how the leaders of both Israel as well as Hamas have been speaking out about this conflict, some noticeable themes of retribution, revolution, and hate have been very prevalent. So, how do you think such themes have influenced the war strategies of both sides? And what are some of the differences between the strategies of the Israel Defense Forces and the Hamas?
See, the ultimate aim of any war is lasting peace. If you don't have that aim, you're fighting a war without aim. And you want that peace, and peace on your own terms, and not on your adversary's terms. So if one were to logically look at the Palestinian problem and Israel's security, a peaceful coexistence of two states, that is the Palestinian state, which has been spelt out as per the United Nations resolution, as well as which was earlier, a pact was signed under the Oslo Accords, and and an Israeli state, and both have to live at peace with each other. Now, as far as, let's first see how does Israel look at the whole problem. Now, Israel is right from the beginning. It's all its security, its strategies are based on never again. That means such was the impact of the Holocaust and 2,000 years of persecution the Jews faced, that we should never be in a situation that we have to suffer such persecution in future, and such large number of deaths in future. So this is what their whole this thing is based on. Now, unfortunately, the Hamas also believes in the same thing. Now, while the Palestinian National Authority, which is based in West Bank, it recognizes Israel, and it also wants that the Oslo Accord should be implemented. However, it is against the Israeli settlements, which are there in the West Bank. Now, Israel also have got the hardliners and the moderates, and the current coalition is of hardliners led by Netanyahu, who has been in power in one form or the other, leading hardliners coalitions for the last 16 years. So the hardliners have been calling the shots. Now, as per the hardliners, they want an enlarged Israeli state from Jordan to the sea, from Jordan River to the sea. Incidentally, the same is the slogan of the Palestinians earlier, but now they recognize at least the Palestinian Liberation National Authority recognizes its limitations. Now, with these ideologies, a word about the populations. The population of Israel is about 9 million. Out of them, there are 2 million Arabs who are Israeli citizens living in Israel, 2 million Palestinians. So the actual population of non-Arab Israel is only 7 million. Now, that's equivalent to the population of the Palestinians. Palestinians have, roughly 3.2 million in West Bank, 2.3 million in Gaza, tightly packed, because West Bank is much larger, and 2 million, as I said, are within Israel itself. So the net population is just about 7 million each of both sides. Now, there's no way 7 million people can subjugate another 7 million people. Right? So the never again, Jordan to the River Sea, both sides are the hardliners amongst them want this to happen. They don't want to give an inch. Now, both sides are on record to say do or die. So this Netanyahu is on record to say there comes a moment in the history of nations when it has to do or die. Then he quotes the Bible to say, this is not the time of peace, it's the time of war. Now, coming to the strategies, what are based with this backdrop of hatred that Hamas has, as well as the hardliners have, their kind of ideology of Israel. The long-term under its long-term strategy, Hamas carried out the 7th October attacks. Now, its long-term strategic aim was that there will be retribution on civilians. So it knew that there will be retribution. So as a result, Hamas leadership within Gaza city will be strengthened. More and more people will start hating Israel, and consequently, more and more fighters will be joining Hamas. It will also probably instigate an uprising in West Bank, and Hamas doesn't have any leadership role in the West Bank. So with this, it also intended to capture the leadership role in the West Bank. Then it wanted the war to be enlarged so that Hezbollah directly and Iran indirectly also join in. Then the other intention was that the Arab world must get united. See, the Arab world, after it was defeated by Israel in conventional wars, it was mending fences with Israel. Almost everybody across the board. There have been the Abraham Accords agreements have been signed. Israel and Saudi Arabia are in negotiations. It has had talks with Qatar itself. So all and with Egypt, in any case, the agreements have already been signed. So all were making peace with Israel. Consequently, the hardliners who don't want a Palestinian state, so their cause was getting strengthened. So it was to break this impasse. So in the end, there's method in the madness. That it is just not the sheer brutality or terrorism. There is an overall long-term strategy. Now, the immediate strategy. What is the immediate strategy now that all this has happened? The immediate strategy of Hamas is to force a military stalemate. That means force a stalemate on Israel as far as its offensive concerned, and don't allow it a clear victory. Because for a stronger power, a stalemate is defeat. And this defeat will ensure that Hamas is the undisputed leader. It may seize the leadership of West Bank, and Hezbollah may or may not, and Iran may, as I said, indirectly join the conflict. But Arab nations have got united, as you can see every day from the reports. All Arab nations, or in fact the entire Muslim world, both the Shias and the Sunnis, for the first time, I mean, including Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and now and the Sunni world, they're all united to stand by the Palestinian cause, if not for Hamas, or at least for the Palestinian population. So this is the immediate aim. So it will fight hard, and it will try to force a stalemate on Israel. So what is Israel's strategy? As I said, the current driver for Israel's strategy is revenge and retribution. Its military invincibility has been shattered on 7th October. Rather than being a role model for security, it has become rather laughing stock of the world as far as the breaches of its security are concerned, so easily and with such horrendous consequences. So now the military and the political leadership, notwithstanding their failures, they are equally interested in a war of retribution. I mean, they are not looking at any kind of reason as far as this is concerned. So they have, their stated aim is the political and military destruction of the structure of Hamas, and for this they need to capture the whole of Gaza. The operations may be graduated. As I said, first they are focusing on Gaza City. Once they capture Gaza City, they probably will focus themselves on the south of Gaza City. Neither side is clear. Probably Hamas has more clarity on the ultimate aim, as I said, is to seek peace. Probably Hamas strategy may lead the world to, pressurize Israel for the creation of a viable and genuine Palestinian state rather than an occupied territory, as is the case at present. Whereas Israel itself has really no clearly stated end state. It has not even stated what it wants to do after it has captured Gaza City. In fact, the defense minister is on record to say that operation is in 3 phases. Phase 1 is when we will launch a relentless air and ground campaign to capture the entire Gaza Strip. And second phase would be mopping up to clear the remnants of Hamas. And the third phase would be when Israel will exit and seize its responsibility of governing Gaza. That means Gaza will be left to its fate. But after this kind of war and this kind of killing of civilians, what you will have on your hand is more number of terrorists, more radicalized populations, both in Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and probably the stage would be set for another round after 5, 6 years or 7 years, as the younger generation which has watched it grows up. So to that end, as I said, it's ironic that Hamas has greater clarity as far as the end state and the end goal is concerned rather than Israel.
Right. I think you brought up some very interesting points. Firstly, on the Abraham Accords, because most recently, I think yesterday, Bahrain, one of the signatories of the Abraham Accords, stopped its diplomatic relations with Israel over its attacks on the Gaza Strip. So that's an interesting development because it was one of the first Abraham countries to do so. You also mentioned international pressure on Israel. And I think that's interesting because we're seeing just how much Biden has been supporting Netanyahu and Israel for its attacks in Gaza, while across the world, everyone's been trying to push for a ceasefire. So that was also quite interesting. So you also mentioned tunnels. So what do you think has been the impact of tunnel warfare in these strategies and in the war?
The question is more as to what is likely to be the impact. What sort of is likely to happen is that as the battle enters the next phase, that is the battle of outskirts is over, two things are going to be very notable. One is that it is probably the world's most congested urban area. That is the Gaza city and the other smaller cities of the Gaza Strip. If you see the uh, movies and you see the visuals, the houses are packed to each other, streets are narrow. Then this intense air campaign has been going on. So this entire urban area has a lot of it has been reduced to a debris. Now, since times immemorial, uh, urban warfare, or also called fighting in built-up area, has been the nightmare of armies, because the defender has a phenomenal advantage. You can't see the defender. He gets a certain amount of security from the built-up areas, and especially in the basements. Then the debris, they can also be exploited by the defender, whereas the attacker cannot use the full might of his tanks. Tanks can't move in the narrow streets, and those streets which are there, even they are big streets, those can booby trapped, they can be mined, and then small range anti-tank weapons come into play. Now, this has been the historical experience. We have had the Battle of Stalingrad. I mean, lakhs of soldiers, Germany, died there. Entire German army, General Paulus' Sixth Army, was finally had to surrender because it could not capture Stalingrad, which was being defended. The women snipers of Stalingrad are legendary. In recent times we've had the Battle of Grozny, in Chechnya, where Russian forces went to capture it. In Iraq, United States has faced the battles in Fallujah and number of other smaller cities. It is all armies try to avoid fighting in built-up areas, when only get in when there is no other resort. Normally, you bypass them and cut off the communication and exert pressure. But with the adversary like Hamas, which has got a death wish, it's a do or die battle for them, because even if they surrender, they are likely to face death for the kind of crimes that they have committed. And the justice is always in the hands of the victor. So there is no question of them surrendering. And then the world's most congested area. So this is the problem. Now, when the attacker, he has to fight an infantry predominant battle. He can only use fire support. The so-called scorched earth, that if we draw fire from this building, we will raise it to the ground, with air and with artillery. But then you will find them fighting from the basements. You will find them fighting from the debris, because they have the defender in this case, at least in this case, has nowhere else to go. So it's going to be extremely costly battle. And casualties is one thing that Israel can ill afford. I'll come on to this point later. Now, coming to the tunnel warfare. If you recall, just about 2-3 months back, unrelated to the present situation, I had written a whole article on tunnel warfare, and especially recommending that how we need to adopt tunnel warfare as far as our own asymmetry is concerned, with our adversary to the north, as China is concerned, in Ladakh, etc. Till such time we technologically catch up with China. And I had given you examples of what was there in Vietnam, in the Chinese and Japanese war, which is a tourist attraction today. What happened in outside Saigon, where they had this entire huge network of tunnels, which had to be finally destroyed with the cluster bombs and the so-called mother of all bombs. Then in passing, I had mentioned about the tunnels in Palestine. But what the Hamas has known for the last 2 decades. It has been a decade and a half. Since 2006, it has been fighting Israel. And it has fought 4 major actions in 2008-9 in December, January, then in 2012 and 14, and then in 21, and minor actions in 18 and 22. These were all triggered by small terrorist actions, and the response of Israel was using air power and some limited incursions on the outskirts of the town. So there never was a battle inside. But Hamas realized that its salvation, if it has to fight Israel to a grinding halt, lies in creating a tunnel network. It has created the most sophisticated tunnel network ever in the history of warfare. There's allegedly 500 kilometers of tunnels have been created in all the cities. And they were smuggling tunnels, but I'm talking of the fighting tunnels. They are complete with mini rails for movement and bunk beds, storage depots. At places they have gone down, 30 to 40 feet into the ground. Water supplies, food, etc., all has been stored. And the advantage of tunnels is that even if you bomb the urban terrain, so this at a certain point, they know those points, they will just come up and then start fighting. You imagine that there is an army unit, it has captured the entire area, and suddenly pop up from 5-6 different places, people who get up and start firing at it with small arms and with anti-tank weapons. Then to tackle the tunnels, it requires literally close combat. And they can be booby-trapped. So there is an immense scope. So now with the tunnels and with this, it is going to be, I would normally, it's wrong to say such things because you never know how the collapse, because battles are won due to psychological collapse of the adversary as to who gives up first, etc. Both sides, attacker as well as the defender. So unless psychological collapse of one of the sides takes place, it's going to be the mother of all battles. It'll be a battle that will be read as as a lesson in the future when for the students of military history. Hamas is going to fight unto death. As I said, for them it's the death wish. They have nothing else to look forward to. Either way, they are gone for their crimes that they have committed. And Israel, to do what it has given out as its declared aim, it has to capture these areas. And initially Gaza City, then the whole of this thing. So it's going to be the cost. To Hamas, the cost doesn't matter. One thing I forgot, at the civilians, a lot of them are still there. It's a 2.3 million population tightly packed. And okay, even if you say half the population was in the north, in the Gaza City area, out of them, still a lot of people would be left. So you imagine the human tragedy that's going to take place with two people battling in hand-to-hand combat and out of tunnels and in built-up areas, in debris, and then there are the women and children, sucked into all this. People didn't leave these areas because population simply can't go. If you ask half of Delhi to move to the north, where will they go? A lot of them will keep staying there. Now, coming to the issue of casualties, as I said, for Israel, casualties matter a lot. In 2011, for one Israeli soldier, they gave up 1,000 Hamas prisoners. In the previous wars that took place there, just about 100 Israeli civilians and soldiers died. And there were 5 of them, four wars in Gaza. Now, the casualty figures of Israel is 1,405. And the soldier figures are already crossed the 350 mark. 23 soldiers have died since the 30th. So this is going to be a big factor for Hamas the casualties don't matter. For Israel, they matter a lot. Tunnels, the urban areas, and the casualty figures as a result of the first two. This is going to be the signature of this this battle.
Right. I think it was good that you pointed out how, while Israel did warn civilians to move out of northern Gaza, it became impossible for a large part of the population to actually move towards the south, because a lot of these pathways were also bombed because of Israeli intelligence that Hamas fighters were trying to move towards the south. And there were a lot of other reports that mentioned that there were many reasons why civilian populations were continuing to stay in northern Gaza. So finally, looking at where this war is headed, what do you think what is your prognosis of the final outcome of the war?
See, it's all going to depend upon the progress of operations of Israel and the casualties it suffers. Israel values human life, and it grudgingly protects its citizens as well as its soldiers. Unprecedented casualties may force Israel into prematurely declaring victory, and sort of begin some sort of a ceasefire, and possibly negotiate the release of the hostages. This would be, of course, playing into the hands of Hamas, but this is the strategy that Israel has chosen. So now for Israel, it is either victory or it's defeat, because anything short of total victory is stalemate, and stalemate is defeat for a superior power, and thereafter Hamas remains intact, and everything else that Hamas wants would be achieved. So unless Hamas psychologically collapses, such organizations are not a centrally controlled organization that there's a collapse of the leadership, like collapse of political leadership or collapse of the military leadership. These are organizations based upon ideology, for a cause, and as I said, especially when they know that there is no escape. If they surrender, they are likely to be killed, or even if they are given justice, they'll be hung, from the scaffolds because of the crimes that they have committed. So they'll go to death wish and they'll fight unto death. The same is not true for Israel. So unless there's a psychological collapse of Hamas, I foresee at this juncture a stalemate. And as I said, at some stage, after achieving some gains, Israel, depending upon the casualties that have been incurred and the state of morale of Hamas, it may declare victory, and then it may also, in any case, has to keep way open for the hostages for negotiations. As far as the Hamas is concerned, hostages are only means to an end, and they'll have no hesitation in using their hostages as human shields in the battle in the urban terrain as well as in the tunnels. In fact, they're holding them in the tunnels, and bulk of them would be in the Gaza city. And as a last resort, if they go down, they may even kill them. These are the factors that will dictate also the conduct of Israel. Now, whatever be the outcome, it's uncertain. We do not know. Hamas can collapse. There's unlikely to be any kind of immediate truce, because Netanyahu has ruled it, and he has quoted the Bible to say this is time of war. So this is how how we'll have to wait and see as to how it unfolds. But having said this, as I mentioned, the Arab world and the entire Muslim world is united against Israel. The entire South is united against Israel. In the end, as always, Israel will be left with the support of the United States and a handful of other countries. And a lot of them will also do it reluctantly because the kind of humanitarian crisis the Israeli um, bombing has created. So as a result of this, plus you see what President Biden himself has said, that at the end of all this, a viable Palestinian state has to be there. So never since the signing of the Oslo Accords in the mid-90s has Palestine been as close to the reality of a genuine Palestinian state as today. Whatever be the outcome of war. But war as such, we will know in about, as I said, in a week, 10 days time, or maybe even longer, because after all, everybody is predicting a longer time. So let's see how it unfolds, and probably we will talk about it once again after a gap of about 10 days or so.
Right. Well, thank you, General. I think you brought up some very interesting insights into, firstly, the war strategies of both sides, Israel as well as Hamas. Looking at how themes of hate, retribution, especially not again, do or die, these kind of themes, how have they influenced and played a role in these military strategies? As well as the unfortunate nature of this war, especially the high civilian casualties in Gaza, and where this war is headed. So, for viewers interested in reading the full article by General Panag, the link to it will be in our description. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.